Okay, and this is going to be the final video on commas, and then after this I've got one more on semicolons, and we will be complete with the punctuation videos, at least for these punctuation videos. So commas with additional information is the third rule that I want to discuss. So if you have a word or phrase in your sentence, with the exception of prepositional words or phrases, which we covered in the last video, can you remove that phrase without changing the basic meaning of the sentence? And if you can, then you need to have commas around that information. Let me show you how this works. The man next door, who used to be married to my aunt, was arrested last night. So notice, I can leave this information out, who used to be married to my aunt, and I still retain the subject and the verb of the sentence. The man next door was arrested last night. I am offering my readers additional information about which man next door. Maybe you have men on either side of you, and so you're letting your reader know the man next door to me, not the one who runs around naked in his backyard, that crazy guy, but the other one who used to be married to my aunt was arrested last night. So because I can leave that information out and retain the subject and the verb of the sentence, the man next door was arrested last night, I put commas on either side of that information, letting readers know I have given you additional information about what comes directly before it, which is the man next door. I'm giving you more information about the man next door. You can also have additional information come at the end of the sentence. Do you like Sarah? Well, which Sarah are you talking about? The girl with the red hair. So because this is additional information about Sarah, I set that additional information off by putting a comma after the word or the phrase that I am helping to explain. So, do you like Sarah? Which one, comma, the girl with the red hair is the one who I'm talking about. Mark, as you have probably already heard, has been fired. So sometimes you will see within plays where they will do what is called an aside. They will give people information, give the audience information in addition to what it is that they are saying. Mark has been fired is the main part of the sentence. I have my subject and my verb. I am simply nodding to my readers or to my listeners saying, you probably have already heard this, but I just want you to know, in case you haven't, that Mark has been fired. Mark, as you probably have already heard, has been fired. So because this is additional information, I set it off with commas. So let's look at these. My computer, the one with the broken monitor, was stolen yesterday. Notice that in this case, my computer was stolen yesterday is the main part of the sentence. I am letting my readers know additional information about which computer it is by giving them this information, which is the one with the broken monitor. So maybe somebody broke into my house, and you're really wanting to highlight the fact that these dumb robbers, when they broke in the house, took the one with the broken monitor. But the main part of the sentence is my computer was stolen. I am simply giving people additional information about which computer was stolen. Janet told me, as if that's a shock, that Mary isn't going to the party. Okay, so if you said as if that is a shock, is additional information, you are correct, because the main part of the sentence is Janet told me that Mary isn't going to the party. The as if that is a shock is referring to the fact that Janet told me. Now, some people have looked at this and said that's referring to the fact that Mary isn't going to the party, but additional information will always follow directly after whatever it is trying to help explain. So Janet told me, as if that's a shock, because Janet tells everybody everything, that Mary isn't going to the party. I'm giving my readers additional information about Janet telling me. But look at the difference here, depending on where I put as if that's a shock. Janet told me that Mary isn't going to the party. As if that's a shock. So in this sentence, that same statement, because it has been placed behind Mary isn't going to the party, is saying something different. In this sentence, it's saying Janet told me, as if that's a shock, Janet tells everybody everything, to Janet told me that Mary isn't going to the party. As if that's a shock, because Mary never goes anywhere. Mary is a homebody. She never leaves the house. So notice, depending on where you put additional information, you may be what is called modifying different parts of the sentence. Just like you would modify a car and change it by upgrading it, you are upgrading Janet telling me here in this part of the sentence you are upgrading or modifying Mary isn't going to the party. So this additional information, because it has to do with Janet telling, goes in the middle of the sentence and it is set off with commas. Because I am talking about Mary isn't going to, or Mary not going to the party, I set it off at the very end with a comma there. So both of these are additional information. They're just different. They're giving us additional information about different parts of the sentence. Now, here is something that I'm quite sure that many of you do, and you probably use this regularly, and many of you are not using it correctly with dates. February 14th, 2005. Probably most of you know that a comma goes after February 14th and before the year, but you don't really know why you're doing it. And the reason you're doing it is because 2005 is additional information about which February 14th you're talking about. You are letting readers know, because there have been February 14th for a long time. Which one? Well, let me tell you with some additional information here. So in the middle of a sentence, it would look like this. Mark came to my office on February 14th. Which February 14th? 2005. Notice there's commas on either side of it. I know that many of you probably wouldn't put a comma there, but you have to, because this is additional information right here about February 14th and only stayed for 1 hour. Notice you can have additional information about additional information. Mark came to my office on Monday. Which Monday? February 14th, set off with 2 commas. Which February 14th? 2005, also set off with 2 commas, and only stayed for 1 hour. So in this case right here, I'm letting readers know which Monday, and then I'm giving them additional information about which February 14th. So that's the reason that we have that many commas right there, because you have added additional information about your additional information. The same is true of states. There are many different Charlottes. I set it off with a comma because North Carolina is additional information about which one of those Charlottes it is. Mark grew up in Charlotte. Which one? North Carolina. Commas on either side of that additional information. And moved away when he was 20. Obviously, if it comes at the end of the sentence, you don't have to set it off on both sides because it's the end. But that is the reason that we put commas before North Carolina, or any state for that matter, and also after it, because it is modifying whichever city comes before that. So now you know, if you got a city, you got a date, you know that you're going to set off that information because it is additional information. All right, here's the very last rule. And I will simply present this with a question. Which one of these is the most correct? And notice the only difference is the comma after white. And I will tell you that they are both correct. That neither one of these is any more correct than the other. So regardless of what individual grammar books will tell you, and any punctuation book will tell you, they're both correct. Some books will tell you that one is more correct than the other for that particular style. Wonderful if that's what they want you to do. But as far as which one is correct all the time, they're really both correct. It's just different teachers and different books will tell you something different. Now, some people will tell you that you need to put this comma in, and they refer to that as an Oxford comma. Let me show you their rationale for why that comma ought to be there, and maybe why that rationale is a little bit problematic. If you have a sentence with no Oxford comma, I went to the movies with your mom, the hag, and the witch. Now, what some people will say is, well, wait a minute, I'm not sure whether or not you have 3 different people, or are you talking about my mom being a hag and a witch? Is this additional information about my mom? Or did you go to the movies with my mom, my poor defenseless mother, and this nasty hag and this nasty witch? Or are you calling my mom a hag and a witch? Do we need to go outside? So what these people with no Oxford comma say is it's very confusing. And the reason we need to have the Oxford comma is it makes it clearer that there are three people. Now, there is a potential problem with this that the people who support the Oxford comma don't consider. I went to the movies with your mom, the hag, and the witch. Might to some readers say, oh, well, that's three different people. But notice, this right here could also be additional information about your mom. I went to the movies with your mom, the hag, and the witch. So really, the Oxford comma doesn't really help clarify sentences as much as people would like for you to believe it does. Really, what helps clarify the sentences is context, and context is everything. So, in the context of a sentence, this is probably going to make sense to readers, regardless of whether or not you put this, or I should say, in the context of your paper, it's going to make sense regardless of whether you include this comma or you don't include this comma. It's probably not going to matter. But if you like it and you think it's wonderful, you don't like it, you don't need it in your mind, feel free to do either. The biggest rule with this is, if you do this in one place, you better do this throughout the remainder of your document. So if you have a document like a resume or a paper you are turning into an instructor, and you have an Oxford comma in one listing of items, and then in another listing of items you don't use it, basically what you are telling people is, I didn't take time to proofread this. So make sure that you are doing one or the other, but not both. Keep it standard throughout your paper. So hopefully that helps. That is the final set of comma rules that I've got. I will have one more video on semicolons, and then we are pretty much complete with this series of videos on punctuation.